Hello everybody, been a while since we looked at the Xbox 360 collection, but that does not mean that I've stopped buying them. We got a lot of games to go over now, my friends, but it remains a carefully curated collection to my personal taste. All killer, no filler. I'm not going to go over them all individually, as that did not seem to resonate with people last time, so instead I'm going to do this Metal Jesus style. I'll do panning shots of all the games I own by genre, and then I'll call out a few as we go that I think are noteworthy or deserving of some discussion. I will be going over the recently expanded Switch and OG Xbox collection soon as well, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and please let me know which must-have titles you think I'm still missing in the collection. Alright, enough of all that, let's get into it. Starting out, let's hit the largest and my personal favorite section, the RPGs. As the self-proclaimed JRPG trash man, I've collected nearly all of the JRPGs on the 360, but I've got a whole lot more than just those. Some call this the dark age of RPGs, but 7th Generation birthed some of the most iconic RPG titles ever, and I love collecting them. I recently picked up a few of the slightly more expensive JRPGs like Spectral Force 3 and Magna Carta 2. Pretty stoked to jump into those. The eagle-eyed among you probably noticed this oddball mixed in there, but hear me out. This collection has the first 2 Shining Force games, as well as Phantasy Star 1 through 4. Those are not throwaway titles, they're all-timers. And they're on the same disc as Streets of Rage 1 through 3, 6 Sonic games, Golden Axe 1 through 3, and many other classics. The value proposition here is absolutely insane, and I highly recommend it. This collector's edition of Enchanted Arms is pretty cool. It comes with this manga-style graphic novel. This was an early release on Xbox 360 from Software, the Dark Souls guys, but no, it's definitely not like those, in style or difficulty. It's got a turn-based combat system on a grid, with attacks having a predetermined range and pattern. You see this sometimes in modern mobile games, but it's very unique for this era. Excited to spend some more time in this one. Alright, last RPG, but certainly the opposite of least. If you haven't heard of or played Lost Odyssey, but you like deep, story-driven turn-based RPGs, this is likely the best one on the console, maybe of the generation, and physically it's still an Xbox 360 exclusive. For sports games, I wanted a nostalgic football and hockey game, and these are 2 of the better ones for this generation, but the real standout here is Rockstar's Table Tennis. This was the first game on their new Rage game engine, which later was used to create a few smaller titles you may have heard of, like Grand Theft Auto 4, 5, and now 6, all of the Red Dead games. And yeah, it's obviously nothing like those, but give it a try, it's surprisingly solid. The second biggest stack of games is the broad category of action-adventure, and I'm painting with broad strokes here in terms of genre placement on some of the games, and you may disagree with a few. But hey bucko, it's my video, so you're gonna have to deal with it. Just kidding, feel free to yell at me in the comments. The 360 has a great variety of action games available. We've got Assassin's Creed plus the Ezio trilogy here, the first 4 Devil May Cry games, so many classics that steal the spotlight, but keep your eyes peeled for the lesser known gems as well. Dante's Inferno definitely deserves more love. If you like God of War and you don't mind extreme gore, Dante's Inferno is a no-brainer. It's got a similar-ish gameplay style, and the gruesome descent through the 9 circles of hell makes for some uniquely themed zones to keep things fresh. It's a good time. Killer is Dead has this sweet limited edition that's only around 30 or so bucks on eBay still. Little Hot Pocket style sleeve on your game case, but a soundtrack CD and a decently thick full-color art book are always fun extras. The game itself is not winning any awards, but if you want to turn your brain off for some bizarre hack-and-slash nonsense with babes, blades, and biomechanical arms, give it a look. This is the same studio that did Lollipop Chainsaw, if that gives you an idea. Hitman Blood Money is one of my absolute favorite games from back in the day. Every level is functionally a clockwork dollhouse, and you have to figure out who's going where and when, so you can complete your objectives, but it's the flexibility and how you can get everything done that makes it fun. It's basically a murder sandbox title, and one of the best from IO Interactive so far, in my opinion. 7th Generation was a haven for shooters of all subgenres, and standout third-person titles like Gears of War made their debut here on Xbox 360. First-person shooters like Call of Duty and Halo also saw incredible growth here, particularly online, and I'm even including my two shmups here because I honestly just don't know where else to put them. A shooter people definitely don't talk about as much as some of the big boys is the questionably named Wet. Contrary to your perverse assumptions, this is a reference to being covered in blood from gratuitous violence, and you sure will be. Wet is essentially a Max Payne or John Woo inspired shooter that sends waves of enemies at you and lets you mow them down with your parkour shooting abilities. Super fun, but a little on the pricier side. Death Smiles is a solid and affordable shmup title that we received in the West. The Xbox 360 actually had a few shoot-em-ups or shmups localized here in the West, which is nice given how often they tend to stay in Japan. Some of the Japanese releases are even region-free, so keep an eye out for those. Death Smiles is a cave shooter, Cave being the eponymous studio name of the developer world-renowned for the best shooters on the market. It's a great starting point for those interested in trying out the genre. I'm a big fan of fighting games, despite sucking at them, and the Xbox 360 has a decent little selection of the mainstream titles you'd expect. I'd like to call out the BlazBlue titles in particular here. This one is Calamity Trigger, as they tend to get substantially less love than your Street Fighters and Mortal Kombats. Same developer as the Guilty Gear series, which you've probably heard of. This anime fighting series offers a fun twist on the fighting genre with incredibly high fidelity character artwork and animations, as well as nice saturated colors that really pop. It's got a fun flair to it that you won't see in games aiming to be more realistic. I definitely need to score more racing titles, as I do love the genre. The first Forza Horizon game is definitely one you don't want to miss. Growing up, I mostly played the arcadey-style Need for Speed games, and I strayed away from the more sim-focused games like Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo, but Horizon feels like a great middle ground that everyone can appreciate. Plus, the music festival setting is a great time capsule to the era of its release. I did a full review on this game that you should check out if you're into racing games. We gotta show some love to the Spooky Boys, and while the Xbox 360 doesn't have some of the all-time greats, we do still have a solid selection of really good horror-themed titles to select from. Alan Wake gets more looks these days, I think, after the release of the sequel in particular, but it still deserves a bit more love and attention. It's functionally a Stephen King novel coming to life on your screen, and has a twisting psychological narrative per the developer Remedy's standard. Some may not know that Alien Isolation saw a super late Xbox 360 release, and while it does require a large download from the disc to even play, it's a great horror game and one of the most graphically impressive titles of this entire console generation. I actually did a video on graphically impressive Xbox 360 games that included this one. If you want to check that out, I'll throw a card up. Last category is a little miscellaneous. These are kind of the puzzle or sandbox titles, I'd say. A real standout puzzle game that deserves more love is Catherine. This Atlas published title, which is already a good sign in my eyes, really ratchets up the quality. Featuring adult themes and some trippy imagery, you navigate a love triangle through social simulation by day, then conquer platforming puzzle towers in your nightmarish visions by night. Super interesting idea, and it plays and looks great here. Finishing off today, we have this unassuming little Plants vs. Zombies PopCap collection. Plants vs. Zombies is indeed a classic and fun title, and it looks really sharp here, but the inclusion of two other awesome games in Peggle and Zuma means you can really sink a surprising number of hours into this disc without even realizing it. My favorite game here is probably Peggle, I have good memories of that one, but all three are honestly awesome, as well as kid-friendly if that matters to you. You can even co-op in Plants vs. Zombies, which adds a whole new dimension to it. Alright, for those that stuck around, we have a bonus entry, the crown jewel of my collection, the biggest loser ultimate workout for Kinect. Nah, I'm just kidding, fuck that game. Alright, we're going to take a super quick stroll through my digital library here. I like to focus on the physical stuff, but this is part of my collection, and I want to breeze through it. All but I think this first game were purchased or downloaded during the marketplace closing, where everything was like $1. So everything was like $1 to $2 here. That's most of the reason I picked them up. Some of this stuff I'll probably still buy physical someday, but it was worth grabbing just to have access to it and to preserve it. before the store closed. I went a little nuts. I think I have like 66 game demos just because they were so iconic during that era that I wanted to load up on them just to preserve those and have some stuff to mess around with. First game up here, I don't really have much memory of this, but this is a game from, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. This is Aegis Wing. I believe it's a shmup title. Again, I don't really remember it very well, but I do believe it's pretty well regarded. And a lot of these Xbox Live Arcade games are just gone now if you don't have like a modded console or it pre-downloaded on your machine. So I'm happy to have this preserved if it is on that list. Crackdown 2, I have the first game physically, haven't played it, so I don't know if I like the second game or the franchise enough to invest physically in the second game, but now that I have it for like $1 digitally, I can try it out at my leisure with a really low cost to entry, so pretty cool to have this. Crimson Alliance, I think, was kind of a, I don't want to call it a trap, but I think it was really cheap or free. Yeah, exactly, but the classes and maps and stuff were locked behind DLC, which you cannot purchase or download anymore, and I just didn't know enough about it to want to spend the money. But now I kind of wish I did. I think it's Diablo style in its presentation, which I really like. But functionally, this is probably more like a demo since I didn't spend the money to unlock stuff. But even then, I think this is another game that's just gone now. So I'm really happy to have at least this version on my drive. Dead Rising, classic title. I'm sure I'll snag this physically someday. I just don't happen to have it yet. I have the second game physically, but this was like $1, so why not? Devil May Cry, I have the HD collection for 1 through 3, plus Devil May Cry 4 physically. I think this one's not regarded quite as well, but it's a 5th Devil May Cry game that I can play on 360 for like $1. So happy to pick this up. Now I've got 5 of these games that I can try out on the console and review, and I'm really happy to have it in the collection for so cheap. Doritos Crash Course, don't sleep on the Doritos game, man. This is one of the most beloved Xbox Live Arcade games. I believe it's like a side-scrolling platformer, obstacle course type dealio, maybe sort of in the vein of Trials, but I think it was free. But I also think it's gone now. So I was happy to download and preserve this. This is a really fun game. Happy to have it in the collection here. Dragon Age 2, believe it or not, as much as I love Dragon Age Origins to death, I have not played Dragon Age 2, and I think it got pretty middling reviews. It was rushed after the first game. But given my love, at least of the old games in the franchise, I do think I'll really like this when I play it. Happy to snag it for cheap. Just not a game that I know that I'll like enough to own physically currently. So I'm glad to have it digitally. Hexic HD, these like puzzly arcade games were such staples during this era. The one I really, really wish I owned was Super Marble Blast Ultra. I had it on my old 360 that red ringed, but I do not have it here, and by the time I got around to downloading this stuff, it had been delisted for some time, so that's the one that got away from me. Hexic HD, though, is in that same realm of, you know, bubble popping and Candy Crush and all that nonsense where you line up the colors. But I think this is considered to be a particularly good puzzly game, and I'm really happy to have it preserved. It's another one of those arcade games that might be gone now. Homefront, pretty well regarded game. Not a game that I know enough about or have enough interest in to purchase physically, but for $1 digitally during the sale closing, I think this was a nice pickup. It's a game that I think I'll like, not love, but I really am happy to have access to it now, the ability to play, check it out, review it for such a low price. That really helps out with opening up the library of games I can review. The Metro titles, pretty well known. These were astoundingly cheap, dude. They were like maybe 50 cents or something, maybe $1 at most. And these are big, full action-adventure shooters, man. These are not small games. So to get them for so cheap and have access to both now for like $1 total is just crazy. I'm really happy I grabbed these, and I'm excited to jump in. Oni Chanbara Bikini Samurai Squad. I bought this because I'm a fucking caveman, but realistically, this style of game is usually pretty fun to play, almost ironically. You know, it's so bad they're good type stuff. And I think if you play it from a comedic perspective, it's probably still some fun. But I think it's just a really shitty hack and slash game at the end of the day. Remember Me is not supposed to be shitty. I think it just got overlooked and overshadowed. A lot of people consider this a hidden gem in like the 7 or 8 out of 10 rating range. I'm excited to review this someday, and I was able to pick it up again for like $1. So that really lowers the cost to entry, which is awesome. Happy to have this on the drive. These two I'm probably the most excited about of everything on the drive. Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, that is. I know they're not as good, presumably, as the mainline games, but Resident Evil's fun, and anything in that universe is awesome. So to have these again for so cheap, I'm really excited. I think they were more like $2 or $3 a piece, if I recall, but that's worth it. Anything in the Resident Evil universe that I can expand the collection with, just to dive in and have some fun, I think that's awesome. Skyrim I did not download digitally. This is actually just my install showing up here, so we can skip over that. Last title here, The Wolf Among Us. This is Telltale Games. They did that Walking Dead game that I do own physically, and this is supposed to be just as good as that game. They're both supposed to be fantastic. So excited to check this one out. I don't think this one ever got a physical release, so I'm happy to have the digital version here on the drive. And then I'm not going to stop at all, but I spent days with persistent, really slow downloads going for all these demos, as well as a bunch of free DLC stuff for a bunch of games that I knew I had in the collection. I'm just going to scroll quick through the demos here so you get a glance at some of the stuff I grabbed. They were all free, and I think it's so cool to have these. It was such a staple of the era, and so exciting as a kid with no money to be able to play these free demos. Some are really generous, some are really stingy, but I think the ability to capture footage for videos and stuff is really useful, even if it's just the demo version of the game. And I can dip my toe in on stuff that I don't currently own to see if I like it enough to purchase, so really glad to have those available. And that's it. That's everything that's on my digital drive. Well, this is my entire collection of Xbox 360 games currently in May of 2025. I'm getting closer to having all the titles I want on this console, but please let me know which must-have titles you think I'm missing, or would like to see featured on the channel in the future. I do Xbox 360 reviews all the time, as well as some retro anime stuff, so if you're into nostalgic content, consider subscribing, and thanks for stopping by.